Hi, everyone. My name is Messdaghi, and welcome to Burnout, the greatest start to your organization's security. I'm very excited to give this talk because I feel like we could all use this talk. This talk doesn't only just cover about how you can prevent burnout to an extent, but this is more about how do we do better for our security teams and what we need to know about our industry and why we keep having this burnout cycle happening. For those that don't know who I am the co-founder of WoSec, but also the founder of We Are Hackers and also co-founder of Hacking Is Not a Crime. And my day job is basically growing out startups from internally and externally. And a lot of times they see that we don't grow as fast when our teams are feeling unappreciated or feeling unheard, or also because they're burned out. And that's something that's very prevalent in our industry. So I'm very excited for this talk. So let's begin, shall we? First things first, let's go here. Does this scene look familiar to anyone? Okay, so this was RSA conference just last year ago. We were all in that room together. We were holding hands, maybe not holding hands, but we were shaking hands, maybe doing some elbow bumps. But we also were giving hugs. We were also going to happy hours. We were on the conference floor. We even had to kind of yell into each other's ear because it's so loud at these social hangouts. But little did we know what was lying ahead just a couple of weeks later. And it's really crazy because think about it, we actually even attended karaoke for some of us, but it was a glorious time, as you can remember. And then this all happened. And we're in 2021, but it just felt like it just never stopped. It's still 2020 in many ways. And we're just hoping for things to get better at this point. But the reality is that we're now playing catch up probably at this time. We've been playing catch up. Maybe during that time we felt burnt out here and there throughout the year, but now we're really feeling it. I mean, we didn't have a survival guide on how to deal with a pandemic. And let's be real, we're walking on a very fine line of being just barely okay and terrible. Not just okay and good, it's barely okay and terrible. And all of us have been dealing with burnout. Well, maybe not New Zealand. I'm looking at you lucky people. But even, let's be real, even in New Zealand and everywhere before 2020, even within security, we've known about burnout and have been through it before all the chaos fell in 2020. With burnout, we are placing ourselves and organizations at a huge security risk. We will most likely click a link because we are not 100% who we are. I mean, have you ever tried to function as a 5% battery charge? No, you cannot function well. I mean, there's a reason why we have to drink coffee or tea before we do anything first thing in the morning, because we're not awake. And this is a problem because we may not patch right or be completely overwhelmed by what is needed to be patched immediately. But let's also be very real right now, because sometimes we're kind of seen as bots, not humans. And this is not just us within our industry, but people outside our industry see us as bots. And to be honest with you, is that humans, we're not supposed to be working 24/7, because you have to think about when we're working all hours and always expected to be on calls or responding to Slack, email, Signal. How do we even balance a personal life and a work life? Because burnout occurs when we do not practice self-care. And when our work demands more from us and we spend less time with our personal life, the balancing is completely gone and stress increases. We start feeling very guilty, actually, and we struggle to sleep because we feel like we are trying so hard not to drown. You may even notice changes on your team, for example, such as employees being withdrawn or fast to become sad or angry or irritated, or delays in email responses or pushing out project deadlines. This person probably was your high achiever, right? Who would respond to an email within 10 minutes of receiving it. Now they don't respond to it for a whole day or 2 days. These are signs. And this is something that you don't need to be in the office to recognize. Even when we're remote, we can see that. It's looking at the time delays, but also seeing what is going on with our personnel. Now, it should also be stated that those with like a smiling face every single moment, they might not be okay. So it's really important for you to understand it's not to judge on the outside because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And right now, working from home and remotely has increased the number of hours worked. That means like increased expectation and has a really increase of blurriness of work time and limits. And some people have quit because they cannot handle the juggling of work and personal life because their company failed them. I want you to understand that the company failed them because they weren't able to be more flexible and they don't practice inclusion and equity. And you might be wondering, why am I bringing up inclusion and equity? Because DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, the reason why we see such a high turnaround of women or those that are marginalized in this community is because the inability to have flexibility. And we have seen this really hit our economy very hard. And this is because the employer is not doing enough to support the employee because they are not respecting boundaries or they're not trying to hold responsibility of having a life and work-life balance. And we need to have a very blunt conversation too, because we haven't had a 9-to-5 job for ages in InfoSec. And this is the contributing factor of employers pushing employees when it comes to like working from 9 to 5, but they say 9 to 5, but yet they still send emails, Slack you at off hours, even text message you, call you after work hours. And this really does place you and your team at a losing situation because they feel obligated to respond. And this is why the burnout cycle continues. Is because there is no boundary. It used to be we walk in an office, and when we left office, then we felt like we had some control of our life, and there was a sharp contrast of after hours. But now our after hours and our office is in the same home, same space. And this makes it very, very difficult. And by the way, did you know that more than 40% of employers send messages to their employees during their after hours? Don't be those people. And for those who are not aware of really what burnout is and what it starts to form and look like, it can be that it used to take a few minutes to respond to an email, and now it takes an hour or so. You may feel exhausted and trapped, or sometimes people feel empty. You push yourself to a breaking point where you no longer come up with new ideas. You're not even creative anymore, but rather like taking meds to help with aches, such as tension headaches, or taking meds to help with upset stomach, or sleepy meds, so then you can sleep throughout the night. The whole thing is that we're becoming so overly anxious over events and deadlines. And this is the turning point, right? Because when you start getting anxious over events and deadlines, you easily cry or get angry faster than usual. You may not even respond to your friends or family when they call or text for some time. And then the guilt starts entering because you're not being able to be there for them. And your personal life starts slipping. Now, your life is now your work, and you start to feel unappreciated for your work at work. And then this is when resentfulness comes in. And then from being resentful at your work, this is when you start hating and dreading your job because you don't feel appreciated for giving up all these things in your personal life to be there to help out this company. And this is the moment where people end up walking away or quitting. Because what we have been doing is putting employees at a huge health risk by staying in a burnout environment. Take a look at this slide. This is what happens to your body, according to the CDC, when you're dealing with burnout. No matter how much sleep you get, you just feel exhausted and you feel emotionally depleted, which can mimic depression. And you may even struggle with sleep, such as trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. And when we're stressed out, cortisol increases and it gets hard to shut down our minds, which causes us to toss and turn, reduce deep sleep, or even get enough REM. And when we don't get proper sleep, stress levels increase and mental state can start shifting to anxiety and depression symptoms. And when we are overly anxious or experience depression symptoms, we start to get sick way more often. You know, when you have employees that start calling in sick all the time, they're probably burned out and they're too sensitive to share that they're burned out or something's going on in their own home life. But you also need to understand that when that starts happening, that means that you may need to reevaluate your team and see if whether or not you're micromanaging. Because actually, a lot of times when people start getting sick all the time is because they're feeling micromanaged a bit, or they feel overwhelmed with too much demands and pressures. Now, the other thing to note is that when we start getting sick often, these are usually like gastrointestinal issues, headaches, infections, colds, flus, cold sores, rashes, or irritated skin, lower immune system. And when our immune system is low and stress is high, believe it or not, your joints and muscles actually get stiff because your body's in survival mode, thinking that there's some perceived threat in the environment. And it can even turn into muscle weakness and fatigue. If left untreated, prolonged stress increases high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes because there's too much adrenaline and cortisol over an extended period. Clearly, burnout is not a joke. It's extremely serious. And we have a real problem in our industry that is leading our colleagues and ourselves into this really, really terrible situation. So let's look at the reality of our industry. So these are some facts that were collected from dark reading, but I want to say that these facts and figures, this research was not really conducted until not even in the middle of the pandemic. So please note that these statistics actually are probably much higher. So bear with me. But 21% of CISOs said that they have taken a leave of absence because of job-related stress. And 41% of CISOs took this significant step, even though many reported being afraid to take sick days. And 35% neglected to take all their allotted time off. Now, 48% of CISOs said that their work stress had impacted their mental health, while 35% said it was impacted their physical health. Now, 40% of CISOs said that their work stress has impacted their relationships with their families or children. And 32% said it had impacted their relationships with spouses or romantic partners. And 32% said it impacted their relationship with their friends. And 23% said that they're using medication or alcohol to manage stress. Like I said, please note that these statistics are probably much higher now because of what has happened during the pandemic. Now, the other thing is to understand that all that, you're probably wondering, why are CISOs so overwhelmed? Just like every other security member, it's the demand. But also, there's a reason for why CISOs are getting burned out and why CISOs actually end up not having that position for a long time, besides always being the responsible party if there's a breach. But 94% of American CISOs and 95% of UK CISOs reported working more than their contracted hours, on average 10 hours more. In addition, 83% of American C-suite execs and 73% of UK execs confirm that they do indeed expect security teams to work longer hours. In other words, we, as security professionals and CISOs, are expected to work beyond normal hours. It is the norm. There's no other type of role out there that you are, maybe sales, but think about that. That's 24/7. That's in the middle of the night too. And CISOs, as a manager and leader dealing with all this, and you have to understand the amount of stress it is to be a CISO. You get burned out so fast because of the demands. And this could become something very, very dangerous for employers. Also for employees, because security risk and increasing possibilities of managerial issues are very true. And coping with such issues can lead to them self-medicating on the job, as we have learned, and also walking a very thin line of what is appropriate. But once again, this is not a CISO's fault. I want you to understand that. This has nothing to do with the CISO's fault of why this is like this. It's because we have a system that is very broken, an industry that isn't sufficient in the long run. It is this industry that continues to fail us and runs on people being burned out. Of course, it's not trying to do that, but it is. It's set up for us to get burned out. And let's take a moment there. We have a foundation that doesn't empower us. We have a foundation that disempowers us in every single way. And there's no wonder we have a rotating door and a mental health crisis in our industry. And I'm about to show you why it's like this. So why are we burned down in the first place? I think you guys have ideas already, since most of you are probably already in this industry for some time, or maybe you've been in this industry for 1 year and you recognize really, really fast that we have some issues. By being in security, we are monitoring and operating 24/7. Sometimes we work throughout the night. And sometimes we cannot sleep well because we're always at the edge of our seat, just knowing that when it comes to security, attackers, they attack at any hour. And sometimes it usually is the weekends or in the middle of the night, or it's the holiday season, because those are usually the times where there's less personnel working, and attackers know this. So this makes it even more stressful when you're trying to enjoy your weekend, because you know the possibility is very much real. And because of that fear of always that a breach may occur, because it will occur. Believe it or not, if you think you'll never have a breach in your whole entire life, you are definitely not understanding how InfoSec is running right now. Breaches are occurring all the time. It's just a matter of time when it is going to happen. But the thing is that the reason why we're even more worried about a breach happening is because we know if there's a breach, it will be most likely an ad hoc style to fix it. Don't believe me? According to the Ponemon Institute, while security response planning is slowly improving, the vast majority of organizations surveyed, about 74%, are still reporting that their plans are either ad hoc, applied inconsistently, or that they have no plans at all. Additionally, more than half, 52% of those with security response plans said that they've never reviewed it or have no set time period for reviewing or testing those plans. And with COVID-19 right now and working from home, how many of those plans have been updated? Think about that. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why there's a 400% increase of successful breaches right now. So what do we do about it? We totally forget the human element when it comes to planning. Instead, we just throw tools at the problem. So instead of doing better planning and having less disruption, we throw tools, because it's so much easier for us to throw tools than to have an understanding of the human element role that plays here. And spoiler alert, we actually are making the situation much worse by doing so. Because when we add tools to it, guess what? It's not in the plan and coordinate. And the other thing is the coordination is off. So every time you add a new tool to it, it's not updated in your plans if you have a plan. And the coordination could be completely off. And these third-party tools, we don't really know how secure they really are. And this is really stressful. Are you stressed yet? If you're listening to this, so perhaps your cortisol levels rising a little bit? No? Well, then I want to imagine a situation. I want you to imagine you're part of a crew and you just found out your ship is sinking. But you found out after for some time because you weren't alerted by your system because you didn't update it. So the updates didn't help with notifications. So your customers are aboard and trusting you for their safety. Your team is scared and some are paralyzed by the fear of failing. So even though if they did practice of how to, escape safely, that they might be freaking out because they're now in a panic mode and they don't actually know how to function in a panic. And this is actually why it's really important to constantly practice as well, because the more you have a memory of what you're supposed to do, this reduces that stress, that panic mode, but also you don't know how you're going to react when you're in one of these type of situations. Now, going back to this thing, you have your crew, they're scared, they're paralyzed with fear, but your customers are also trusting you for their safety. You are notified a little too late when it comes to your ship is sinking. So now you're really trying to get everything together really, really fast. But there's a catch here. Your entire team hasn't slept well and is seasick. So they're not exactly 100% the state of mind usually. If anything, you could kind of say that they're functioning at the same rate as in scope as someone who's actually burned out. Okay, so now you have the backstory. Now I want you to imagine your captain pulls out a safety binder to know what is the protocol. Thank God there is a safety binder on there with a protocol, right? So the captain takes it out. But unfortunately, the binder that you have was not the updated one on this ship. And no one knows what they're supposed to be doing. So you're using an old procedure, but have new features to this ship. Are you stressed out now? Because this is what it's like when dealing with bad plans and when the human element is taken out. It leaves you with a wreckage. And the truth is, bad actors are everywhere and attack at all hours. 0 days drop often, and we constantly need to be up to date on what the bad actors are using. And this takes time and energy. And this is why we're struggling. We're part of the crew. And when we don't function well or communicate well, it becomes a really scary situation. The reason we're in security is because we know how incredibly important it is to be secure, but we also need to come to terms that if we work around the clock all hours and don't practice self-care or even promote employee wellness, what's the point? Because there can be a danger to the organization as well if we are running on a low battery and not feeling well. And this is why burnout matters. This is why we keep turning to tools and not find a plan or timing to prep, practice, and self-care. We become that security team that sinks. We won't be able to fix a breach fast. And this is scary. And please don't turn around and blame your employees if they're not performing as well. And because the majority of you, that is what happens. You let the team member go without checking to see what you have done that has reduced their performance, because chances they're burned out and feeling very much alone. And especially if you're micromanaging, just don't do that. Micromanaging has never worked, ever. So maybe you need to check in on your management skills too, because this is the moment that you need to look at yourself. If you are a manager or a leader, what are you doing that's making the situation worse or better? Because right now with COVID-19, we are taking care of family members. We're on camera daily. We're unable to leave our homes. We can't see our friends and family, and some of us live alone. And some of us put off some really important events in our life, and some of us have lost people. And our colleagues are struggling, and we're worried about keeping a job. Because it's not just a pandemic we're dealing with, we're also dealing with an economic crisis too, and a mental health crisis. But we're also worried about affording the life that we have, and we're worried we have COVID, and we're also worried if we may not make it through COVID. And I think we need to come to a point that we're not a machine here. We're human. And the human element created security and runs on security. And we're all struggling with staying okay before COVID and during COVID. Except New Zealand. Okay, New Zealand, and I'm so jealous. So jealous. I can tell you there's a lot of people jealous right now. But one thing I can take away from New Zealand, though, is that the Prime Minister did a phenomenal job. Think about it. She worked with people and planned. And when you plan, there's less disruption. So how can we lead like this prime minister? I'm going to give you 4 ways how you can invest in your team right now at this moment. Investment number 1, listen and take action together. Be strong, be kind. Ask your team what they need. Don't just listen, actually take actions. When we listen to each other and strategize together on how to improve the team and or department, it reduces the stress, because stress happens when we're not being listened to or feel uncomfortable to speak up. Your colleagues may share that certain tools aren't needed, or there's a tool that does 5 things that one does that is much better. And they may share what is missing on the team, or perhaps less meetings are needed. And by working together on what are the issues, we can actually collaborate together and find ways how to reduce the issues or completely resolve them. Investment number 2, plan together, strategize together. With collaboration and listening, working together with a team to make strategies and revisit your security response plans. Make it up to date. And if you don't have one, make one. This is the time to do so. Revisit the plans that you have, though. And every time a new tool is removed or added, or a new team member change or environment change, such as everyone working remotely and so on, that needs to be updated. By creating and making solid plans and running through over and over to prep, it helps speed up the recovery and reduces the stress when a breach occurs, that there's a plan to follow up that's up to date. Just remember that example of that cruise ship. It helps when a plan is up to date. You owe it to yourselves, your colleagues, your org, your customers, because it means that you acknowledge the human element is there. Because we don't know how we're going to react when we're in a disaster until we're in a disaster. So it's better to prep as much as possible, so then we can actually sleep a little bit better at night. And we know that if we're called in the middle of the night, we know that we have a plan that's up to date that we can run through. I mean, look at New Zealand. They planned in COVID-19. I mean, look at it. They had 25 deaths. You know how many we have in the US? We have over 563,000 deaths. And this is because someone didn't plan or take actions or listen to their team. Investment number 3, encourage self-care. Studies have shown that when dealing with burnout, taking 1 week off away from work or anything related to work, that means turn off your devices too, provides recovery for burnout. If your employee is burned out, make sure they feel supported to take time off, and also encourage it often to the team. And there's something you should know, that companies that say you have unlimited paid time off, chances are people are not going to take all that time off. Actually, a lot of studies show that if you give that option, they're going to take less time off, because there's this sense of, I feel uncomfortable taking time off, or I feel uncomfortable asking for time off. And this is the problem, is that majority of employees in security are afraid to take time off because they feel guilty for not being there to help their team, and or giving more to their colleagues, or coming back to a dumpster fire. If you can't, give everyone 1 day off a month for a mental health break. And always try to do Monday or a Friday. It becomes a really nice thing to do to your employees. Everyone likes a 3-day weekend. Lastly, make sure you have 1 day per week dedicated to not having any meetings whatsoever. That means no more Zoom for 1 day. This allows your colleagues to catch up on any items or projects, but also to go through their emails. Investment number 4, be kind and respect boundaries. Please be kind to one another, because from what we have learned, when we work together and understand how we impact others, we start practicing empathy. And empathy is certainly missing at times in our industry. But by listening and being there for one another, it reminds us that there's people who care for each other, because we cannot assume how someone is doing by how they look or by their performance. We do not know what each other is going through. So instead of going at someone, reframe, take a step back, reframe, and think before you speak or act, because you really don't know how that will impact the other person. So as in New Zealand states, be kind, because that's the element We need to stick together to protect the world from the darkness. But also know that being kind is respecting work boundaries, such as 6 feet of a distance and wear a mask. And I'm going to tell you what you can do right at this moment. So right now, take a screenshot of this or write it down. Whatever makes it easier for you is these are things that you could do right now, which will only take a few minutes of your time. 1, set a weekly one-on-one for 15 minutes with each employee. This allows you to go over their projects and to know for them and you to be on the same page on what to prioritize. This is not meant to micromanage. Please note that by having these weekly one-on-ones, that means that you don't have any more one-on-ones with them. That means once a week, 15 minutes, and you don't have to take the whole 15 minutes, just a quick check-in to know how each person is doing. Make Monday or Fridays a no meetings day. This is really important because we need a day where there's no Zoom. Set up a meeting with the team to explore ways to improve together. These could be a monthly arrangement. This could be a bi-weekly arrangement to figure out how you can work together to improve things. And then also create an anonymous survey. So when someone does submit some recommendations, it's not traced back to them, because this is one of the reasons why people don't fill out a survey. So if you're going to make a survey, you better make that anonymous. Don't have a tracker on it. We need to make sure that people can share their real thoughts and feelings without having to worry about their job being on the line by doing so. And lastly, remember, when we work together and listen to each other, magic does happen. When we work together, making sure people get personal time off without them fearing of taking time away, we're becoming collaborative. When we collaborate, we reduce the stressful items that hold back the team from thriving. When we focus on balancing work and personal life for everyone, that's when we no longer have a dumpster fire. Burnout as a security concern, no more. Because we know we are human and the human element rules the world that we live in. And whenever in doubt, just remember, if New Zealand can plan well, so can you. Because in all of us, there's a Frodo within us who is on the journey to get rid of a malicious threat. So, quick overview to reduce burnout. Just note, burnout places you and your team at a security risk. Not just security risk, personal health risk too. So it's important that we collaborate to form strategies to improve the team. Don't just go at it on your own. Work together. You have a team of people. Every single person has a different background and they're going to have different ideas. And it'd be cool to test them out too. It's just important for us to really communicate better on this front. Now, the other thing is start making plans and revisit security response plans. If you don't have a security response plan, you should take a moment there and make that a priority at this very moment. We need security response plans. It's so important that we have them and that they're up to date, because it helps our team feel less weight on their shoulders, but also it makes you guys have a better idea of what to expect when you run through it. And remember to promote self-care and being kind and respectful to boundaries. That means no employee should have to think that they need to come into work or respond to a Slack message or an email after work hours. You can send emails, that's okay. If you want to send emails, that's okay. But the reality is that a lot of employees feel when they get something, they get a Slack message, they have to respond. And that could be like 10 o'clock at night. That could be in the middle of their dinner with their family. And that's not okay anymore. We need to understand that people have a life outside of work. Our work and our life are, yes, they play a role with each other. But the reality is that we have a life outside of work. And our work should not be our life. And that's the one thing I definitely can take away from this pandemic is don't let your work become your life, because you miss out on all the beautiful things around you because of it. And so that's why we need to do better. Wouldn't it be great if we had such a balanced industry where we could love our work, our job, but also love our personal life, that we have a personal life? That's what we need to be practicing more today. I want to say thank you guys so much for attending the talk. I'm going to be answering questions with you guys now live in the chat. And if you feel a little bit shy or anything like that, feel free to DM me. My DMs are always open on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Chloe Messdaghi. And thank you guys so much for existing. And thank you, really, really, I do mean this. Thank you for attending this talk, because I really hope that we can come together and come up with more solutions to make our industry a little bit better and safer. And it's so important that we do so. So thank you, everyone, and stay safe. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.